Started. Welcome to this meeting today of the P&A Senate. We'll be meeting from 9:30 to about 11:30. We have three fantastic groups of folks coming up. First up, in just a few minutes, we're going to hear from Julie Tonneson, and she's going to talk about the university budget. We've had several moments during our Senate meetings and in our subcommittee meetings where there have been questions about like, oh, okay, well, this should happen with employee salaries or this should happen with buildings. And, where the money comes from and how it gets spent is an ongoing question. So Julie's going to talk about some of those things. Then Kristen Larson and Ryan Reisdorfer from the Wellbeing Program are going to be here. And then after that, we're going to have Paula Merrill from Total Comp, who's going to be talking about post-refinement education a little bit. Then we'll have our Senate and our subcommittee reports, old business, new business, and we'll adjourn. Um, I'm going to go a little tiny bit out of order because Cole Hansen from the Civil Service Consultative Committee, the Civil Service Senate, is here. Cole is the chair-elect, and he's got some scheduling conflicts, and so instead of having Cole go from 11:10 to 11:25, I'm going to go ahead and give him the floor now. So Cole, if you'd like to share out about all the cool stuff happening in the Civil Service Senate, that would be awesome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Cole Hansen, he, him. Just a little background on me. I work in Extension on our statewide online education for low-income families on SNAP Ed. I'm also your co-chair for Civil Service Senate, so I'll be spending more time talking with you all coming July when I take over from Stacy. But for now, I'm just here. So just a few updates from Civil Service Senate that we're working on. Number one, you all may remember the Morrill Hall incident from just a month ago. Civil service leadership, we're working with OHR and some of the staff from the President's office as well on how to include civil service Senate leadership and governance leadership across the board in the conversations that are currently largely with faculty around how the university should respond to incidents like these. The main reason we were interested in getting involved is that a large number of the employees affected by the incidents in Morrill Hall and the various disruptions on campus are civil service employees. And so, while having faculty involved to address student, rights of protest, freedom of speech concerns, we want to make sure we're also involved at the table because we are representing those who work at the university day to day and aren't just students. The university has been pretty receptive to that conversation. We're continuing that into the next year.
Had these 21 hours.
We're just trying to figure out the right way to do that. Next, invitations have gone out for the workforce resolution committees. So thank you everybody who is been appointed or volunteered or was voluntold. Thank you for sitting on these committees. It is no small effort that went into that resolution, and your efforts to come to the table and support our workforce improvements are invaluable. Nobody knows working at the university better than all of us, and it's really important that your voices are heard and that we're kind of steadfast in the goals and initiatives outlined in the resolution. On the civil service side specifically, there's a couple conversations we're having at the moment. I'm just going to say peak is one of them, but I'm not going to go any further than that because there's always a conversation about peak. The two main conversations I'm talking about today are the holiday selection process and family leave. So number one, you may or may not know, civil service is responsible for setting the floating holiday schedules for the University of Minnesota. However, we do that following OHR and the university setting the holiday schedule. The holiday schedule has been traditionally set to include or incorporate or kind of navigate around predominantly Christian holidays. And as someone who is not a Christian, I'm Jewish myself, I'm particularly sensitive to this task of trying to set floating holidays around holidays that I don't necessarily celebrate. And I know that as a diverse institution with folks from all around the world, I'm probably not the only one thinking about this. So we're working on a resolution to encourage OHR to focus on kind of more holidays and more kind of conflicts of time in the schedule for people when they're putting together their holiday schedule. because at the end of the day, like I have no problem working on certain days when other people might, and vice versa. So we're going to be encouraging OHR to look in that direction. Another piece here is around family leave and how OHR can handle certain pieces of family leave. This is separate from the conversation regarding the Minnesota State statute that's going to be coming into an enforcement down the road here. So this is primarily focusing on issues around loss of pregnancy, making sure that employees who do get some time, who do make that notification and request from their supervisors, hey, I'm pregnant, or my partner is pregnant and we're gonna have a baby, blah blah blah. And if there is an accidental or unintentional or any sort of termination of that pregnancy, loss of pregnancy, that time is still respected and preserved. Because ultimately that is a tragic loss, but it's not covered in our bereavement policies. So trying to make sure that we're not only taking advantage of the resources we have, but are accommodating where our employees are, is a really important goal of ours and something that we're looking to move ahead on. Trying to think if I have anything else that's top of line here. No, so that's it. So hopefully that's brief enough. Just want to say thank you all. I really appreciate your time. And thank you, Kit, for giving me the privilege of going just a little bit earlier so I can go to my department meeting.
No problem. Thanks so much for being here, Cole. We really appreciate your report out. All right, well, we're just going to jump right into the agenda. And again, I'll give a chair report and update at the end. I just wanted to make sure that Cole had space to go. So um, since he had a conflict. First up, we have our university budget presentation from Julie Tonneson, who's an Associate Vice President for University Finance. Julie, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. I am the budget director for the University of Minnesota. I've been here 31 years now, all in the budget area. So I've got a good sense of what's going on, at least with the budget, and hope to share information with you today that is helpful. My understanding is that you had questions around the revenues that the university has, what revenues we use to pay our bills, so to speak, and to invest in new program and so forth, and a little bit about the decision-making process that we go through in order to make decisions on the budget, how it all kind of works. So I'm going to open up some slides. There's actually 20 content slides here that are available to you should you need them after this. Some of them are very quick, and I'll try to talk quickly so we get through them all and still have some time to answer questions if that is if that will work. So let me open my file and turn it into a presentation, hopefully. Okay. Can everybody see that okay? Yes, okay.
Sorry,
I-
Julie, we're seeing your presentation view, not the
Oh.
the presenter slide.
Okay, let's stop doing that then and try it again. We'll try sometimes, and this happens differently with everyone, unfortunately. I apologize. Again, you're probably seeing it again.
No, we're not seeing anything right now.
Oh. I so apologize here.
That's all right, Julie. You're okay.
Let's try it again. Okay, now.
We see your Zoom screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I cannot see why it isn't. Okay, there we go. Thought there was a spot.
Hey, Julie, if you'd
Yeah.
like, if you'd like, Jacqueline can run it for you and you can just tell us next slide. We've
Well,
got access to your.
crazy. Well, here, let me ask the question. I'll just stop trying to find it. There is a space up here. Normally when I hit that, it works. But there is, I think, a space up here for to like say the right view, but I'm not finding it. So does anybody know exactly where that is? And if not, we'll just move to Jacqueline. No, no one knows.
I
Okay.
don't, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, here. Slideshow. Use presenter view. Try this one more time.
Because
Now
on
are
the
you?
slideshow tab in PowerPoint,
Yep.
there's the monitor view, and it's either going to be like primary monitor or secondary monitor.
Yeah, doesn't show any of that. I took off the monitors is what I did. It took off the presenter view. So are you seeing one slide now? Or are you seeing all of them?
We're still seeing your Zoom screen.
Oh, okay. That's even worse.
Julie, I'm going to jump in, and Megan said it in chat too. I think if you stop sharing, pull
Yeah.
up the slide, and then share again, it'll work.
And I would chime in that if we see presenter view, I feel like that's okay. We can,
Really fine.
it's not like the perfect polished, but we can at least still see it and follow along.
Or I can run the slides too.
All right. We'll see what you get now. I'm gonna do this. All right, now what are you seeing? Got it?
Got it.
That looks great.
You know, and it's also different at home than it is at work, so anyway,
Right.
that's cool, guys. All right. So like I said, some of these are really quick that we'll go through, so don't worry that we'll run out of time. But the university's budget for the year that we're currently in is $4.7 billion. That excludes internal sales that happen between university departments. And this is an expenditure-based definition. Sometimes that's easier to talk about in large numbers like this. And we'll delve into the revenue sources, but from an expenditure basis, we have $830 million of sponsored research that we are estimating for the current year. And that is held out separately because as many of you know, our sponsored awards are often over multiple years. So if we get a grant from the federal government for $3 million, but it can be spent over 3 years, what we do in the budget is estimate what will be spent each year. And so this 830 million is an estimate of all of those different grants and what we expect to spend directly on them this year. The rest of the budget we creatively call non-sponsored, which is really everything else. Everything that is on an annual basis that makes the university work. So we'll talk more about the revenues, but that's 3.9 billion we're estimating for the current year. And it's important to understand that not all revenues that the university receives in its budget are considered equal. They're not all treated the same. So we say that not all money is technically green. We have a lot of funds that are restricted. So we get special state appropriations where the law tells us where it has to go within the university or what it has to be spent on. Same thing with federal appropriations. Aside from the grants, we get annual appropriations from the federal government. Again, they're restricted to go to certain places. Obviously, the grants that I just talked about have to be spent on very specific projects. And then we have a lot of gifts that come into the university, and 99% of them are restricted as either to unit where it goes within the institution or even to purpose. And there are different levels of restrictions on our gifts. So you might get a gift for the College of Design, for example, and they can spend it how they wish, but from the budget office perspective, that's still restricted because I can't give that gift to another college. Same thing within the college, if that gift to design, it could be open, they can spend it on whatever, or it could be designated for a particular scholarship, for example. So there's different levels of restrictions. And then the endowment income is when we get a really large gift and we create an endowment for a purpose. And so that gift is set aside by the foundation and we don't spend the principal, we invest that gift and we spend the earnings. And that is also restricted based on what the original gift was for. We also have, so those are restricted funds and we consider them quote red because we can't do whatever we want with them. We also have a group that are considered yellow, in which there is really theoretically no impact on the university's budget. These are our businesses. So think about student housing and dining and bookstores and parking and Gopher Athletics, where we're selling something to the public and the rates that are set to charge the public are designed to cover their costs. So it's supposed to be relatively neutral, not make a profit, not cost the university anything. And of course, there's some gray area there. And then we have a whole group that's unrestricted. And this is the money that budget people like the best. And I would say there's two different groups here. On the very bottom, the fees, ICR, sales and services, et cetera. Those revenues go directly to the departments that generate them or the college but often it's at the department level and it's based on the actual work that is being done to generate that revenue. So for example, if you are working in the veterinary clinic, the revenues that the clinic gets go back to the clinic based on the work that they do. And if you're in an academic department and you have an invention and you get royalty income, that goes back to the department, a piece of it, and a piece to the inventor and so forth. But it's based on the work that's done. The O&M appropriation and tuition in the green box, this is the money I like the best because we can do anything legal with that money. It's totally unrestricted. It comes into the university, and we'll talk more about how it gets spread out across the university here in a minute. From a pie chart perspective, our total revenues this year are 4.8 billion. That includes the sponsored funding. And you can see by the color designations how much of it is restricted, that sort of neutral piece in the yellow, and then the green in two different colors. So right now, 37% of our total resources are that really unrestricted discretionary income that we have to use to really do everything, support the mission, pay the utility bills, and so forth. I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of those specific revenue sources that we spend a lot of time on in the budget. And the first is the state appropriation. This is just a picture here of where the state general fund money goes. And you can see that higher education, which includes the University of Minnesota, Minnesota State System, and the Office of Higher Education and the state grant program, all of that is 6% of the state's general fund spending today. Most of their spending goes to health and human services and E12 education, some of which they are constitutionally required to provide. They are not required to provide higher education in any funding, but they obviously find it valuable at some level. That state support has changed over time. So this chart goes back to 1990, where you can see 14.5% of the state's general fund went to higher education, and today it is 6.4%. That shows all of us that the state has higher priorities in how they choose to dedicate their dollars. Doesn't mean we've lost nominally what we've received. The actual dollar amount we're receiving today is more than it was in 1990, but as a percent of the state's available funding, we are less. And it's the same thing has happened in Minnesota State. I will tell you that we are supported well by the state of Minnesota compared to many of our competitors, which receive even less of their budget from the state of Minnesota or from their states, and nothing from Minnesota. This is how the law actually gives us the dollars. So this is what it says in law. Above the blue line, that's that O&M, operations and maintenance, unrestricted block grant that was in the green on the previous chart. Between the blue lines are the restricted state specials. And here's where, again, the state provides it from the general fund, but tells us where it has to go within the institution. So it's restricted. in that regard. And then below the blue line, we also get some non-general fund operating appropriations. We get 2.2 million from the Healthcare Access Fund at the state, which is funded by a provider tax. And then we get 22.3 million each year for the academic health units of the institution that's funded by the cigarette tax. And those have not increased for over 20 years. They've been flat. Finally, at the bottom, we do get very special appropriations, both from the Legislative Citizens Commission on Minnesota Resources and sometimes from other committees that are project-like. They're one-time, they're giving us $500,000 to do X. It's treated like a sponsored grant, so it's not really general operating dollars. Tuition, where does tuition come from? Roughly 39% comes from those who pay the resident undergraduate rate on the Twin Cities campus. That includes students from Wisconsin, for example, that are under the reciprocity agreements between the states, so they pay the resident rate. The next biggest chunk actually is paid by or on behalf of graduate students on the Twin Cities campus. That's 20%. And then you can see Duluth, the professional schools like law, medicine, nursing, etc. Twin Cities and non-resident students, undergraduates, those are all about the same in that 10 to 14% range. And then from Crookston, Morris, and Rochester, that we actually get very little tuition as a percent of our total $1 billion tuition revenue. That's gross tuition before waivers. And over time, the university has become more dependent, not surprising to anybody, on non-state dollars. So what this chart shows you is, again, going back to 1990, at that point, when we were getting, more as a percent of the state's general fund, it also was a higher percent of our total revenues. So it was 39% of our total revenues. Today, we are actually sitting, this page is a year old, but if you looked at 2025, we're actually sitting at 16% is from the state appropriation. During that time period, we become more dependent on tuition. That's the gold bar. And you can see it was 12% of the university's revenues back in 1990, and we're at 23% today. That's still true for FY25. And then on the all other revenues, we've actually jumped up to 61%. That's all those other things I was mentioning. So it's sales and clinical income, royalty income, federal appropriations, grants, etc. That's really hard to grow, but we have been working really hard, and our units have been working really hard to grow that revenue. So today, that's a good, strong majority of our revenues come from all those other sources. It's critical for doing what the university does. These are the dollar amounts for last year. They're very similar to this year, but you can just, for magnitude purposes, the sponsored grant portion of that is high and is growing. The other revenues are growing, but at much less of a rate of increase. So closer to rates of inflation, 2 to 3%. I want to say, just on the sponsored research side, and this is the actual priority of our current president as well, is to continue to grow our sponsored research portfolio. And we are pretty diverse in terms of where our sponsored research grants come from. That's on the left. The federal government is the largest provider of sponsored grants, and within that, NSF and NIH are the two single largest. On the right, it shows you a picture of where those research grants go within the institution, within the university. The medical school receives the largest portion of our sponsored research, but behind that, we have the College of Science and Engineering, also super strong. And places like the College of Education and Human Development is strong and growing. The College of Food, Ag, and Natural Resource Sciences is a big player, the School of Public Health, and so forth. Places like the Law School and the College of Liberal Arts on this Twin Cities campus, those kinds of schools also do research. Much less of it is the sponsored variety. So actually, we use our state and tuition funds to fund research in CLA, in addition to the sponsored grants that we get from external agencies. So this is just a picture of the external agency funded sponsored research. And this chart has a few different messages on it. These are our academic units listed down the left-hand side. This is the level of the institution that we actually work on the budget. So we meet with every one of these units, and we'll talk more about that, to determine their budget. And we, at the end of that process, this is the level of the institution where we present budget information to the board, and the level that they approve some of that budget information. You can see here that there are different sizes. This is revenue. And so the medical school is actually 1/6 of the university's total revenue budget. Very, very large and growing. The experiment station at the top is our smallest academic unit at about $12 million. You can also see here that every one of them has some of that neon green color. That means every single academic unit and system campus also on here. Each one of them gets state support. So nobody is totally on their own generating all of their revenue. They all get some state support. You can also see that the units are dependent on different sources of revenue. So the medical school on the bottom, if you look at the royal blue tuition, they're not dependent on tuition as some of our other units are, and don't really have tuition enrollment issues. But if you look at the College of Science and Engineering, the College of Liberal Arts, the Carlson School of Management, extremely dependent on tuition. So if something happens to enrollment in any given year, unanticipated, that creates a budget challenge for them immediately that they have to deal with. It also means that, and some of them are more dependent on grants, for example, and so forth. And what it means unit by unit is that they have different challenges that they have to manage from a budget perspective, and they have different opportunities for solving budget problems as well. So that's part of the reason why we do the budget at this collegiate and campus level. I also want to spend just a minute to talk about another resource that isn't a revenue, but you all are probably familiar with. We do internal reallocation every year, and every institution does that. What it means is that we make decisions to stop spending on one thing so that we can free up our existing resources to spend them on something else. All else being equal, we give a raise to our employees. If our revenue doesn't grow, what do we have to do? We have to stop spending on something else in order to fund raises for our existing employees. So some of the reasons why we have to do that is today, our tuition does not pay for the total cost of instruction. Our grants plus the ICR do not pay for the total cost of research. State support is absolutely critical. As I showed you, every unit gets some state support, but that isn't keeping up with inflation, and some years goes down. And that means we have cost increases every year that need attention. All right, we don't have enough revenue to cover our costs. We don't have enough revenue growth. We have to repurpose existing resources. And that has allowed us to cover our costs every year. These are just a few example years where we have planned reallocations in those state and tuition funded activities. And if we hadn't done, for example, the FY23 reallocation of 28.1 million, that would have required a 2.9% increase in tuition to cover those same expenses that we covered using existing resources, or it would have taken a 3.9% increase in our state appropriation just to cover that piece. So it's an extremely important part of being able to balance the budget every year. And this is what it's been over time for the last 10 years. You can see that during the pandemic, at the tail end of the pandemic in 22, we had our largest internal reallocation to date, which was at 2.5%. Many years we're hovering right around the 1% level. And I will tell you that every leader that I have worked for, and it's been quite a few in 31 years now, every one of them has believed that there is an amount of churn that allows us to do you know, it varies, but 0.5% to just over 1% every year, just through recognizing efficiencies, making different decisions on our employee makeup, making different decisions about how we spend our money. So that's going to continue. Really quickly on the expenditure side, there's not a lot here, and then I'll get to some decision-making process. But on the expenditure side, we keep track of our expenditures in the system in 2 different ways, so we can report on it in various ways. On the left side, and this is non-sponsored only now, but on the left side is by what we call object of expenditure. And these are the typical spending categories. 61% right now of our spending is on salaries and fringe. That has been in that 60 to 65% range since I've been at the university, so very long time, and that's very typical of a university. The rest of the spending is pretty static. I mean, if your salaries and fringe as a percent is pretty static, the others have not really shifted much either, 1% here or 2 on any given year. We also keep track of our spending, as you see on the right, by function. These are definitions provided by the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, or IPEDS. We have to report into that organization every year because we receive federal dollars. And so they give us these definitions for what does public service mean, what does scholarship and fellowship mean, what is institutional support, et cetera. And every time you spend $1, the chart string that is where that expense is recorded has one of these codes attached to it so that we can report on how much are we spending on academic support, et cetera. The research piece here is small because this is the non-sponsored funds only. If you were to add sponsored in there in a different way, that would be a much larger percent of the total. Our compensation is our single largest budget issue every year. This shows you going back to 2015, FY15, the annual merit pool increases or salary pool increases that we have implemented and what that cost us, again, in the state appropriation and tuition portion of the budget only, which is about half. So if you wanted to do what is the total spending increase on all of our funds, you can double that bottom line. And I'll explain why a lot of these charts are tuition and O&M focused here in a minute. But the salary increase applies to all of the funds. We try to keep up, and in many of the years, actually in most of the years up until FY21, we were at or above the rate of inflation. FY21 was pandemic, so we had a salary freeze, except for our bargaining unit employees. And then we have not been able to keep up with the rate of inflation since FY23 when inflation really skyrocketed. But you can see we have increased from the past what those annual pool increases are. So we are trying to address more of inflation than we had at that lower level. So there's a lot of other spending. We just don't have a lot of time. So I want to talk more now about the annual budget process and how we make our decisions. And in the annual budget process, the president is the one who decides on the major directions for the institution. What do we want to do for compensation? What do we want to do for programmatic investment? What do we want to do for tuition rate increases for our requests to the state and so forth? The president decides those things. But then every president, and the one here included as of today, our newest, has then delegated the budget process to what's called the Budget 6 Committee right now. That committee is me as budget director, the chief financial officer or executive vice president for finance and operations, the provost, the vice president for research, the vice president for academic clinical affairs, and our vice president for equity and diversity. That's the current group. We operate from an institutional hat perspective, not by segments of the institution, but representing the institution as a whole. And we take those directions from the president and turn them into budget instructions, which get sent out to the support units and the academic units every year. Then the chancellors, deans, and vice presidents are the ones receiving those budget instructions. They have to respond to them. They involve their departments in different ways. We have a very distributed budget management model here. So one dean and one vice president may choose to create their budget differently than others. And how they involve their departments is different as a result. But in their own internal processes, they respond to the budget instructions. We then, as a budget committee, put together recommendations for the president every year. It's an iterative process where ultimately we arrive at the decisions the president makes, puts them into the recommended and creates the recommended budget that then goes to the Board of Regents for review and approval. There's consultation that occurs throughout this process with different groups across the institution to keep them aware of what we're trying to do with the budget for next year. I'm not going to read through all this. These are the units. The academic units are listed down the left, the Twin Cities colleges and the system or Greater Minnesota campuses. And then we have on the right support units. I will say some of those that have an asterisk by them are treated like an academic unit for purposes of the budget process, athletics, for example, or auxiliary services. And some of them have centers within them that again are treated just like an academic unit in the budget process. So the centers within the vice president for research or within the provost office, those units are kind of bifurcated. There's a piece that's support and a piece that's academic, which matters because of this next slide. So this is a tool that the university uses. It's called our budget model. It's an RCM, a Responsibility Center Management Budget Model. And it's a tool that helps us take those really high level decisions I mentioned that the president makes down to a unit level to understand the impact at the unit so we can make those decisions uniquely for each unit based on the challenges and opportunities they have. So how this works very simply is that all of the earned revenues of the institution get attributed automatically, recorded in the academic RRCs. So not at the department level, but at the college or I'll just use our campus level. They get them automatically. The state appropriation is an annual decision. It's not formulaic. It's an annual incremental base plus minus process where we determine how to distribute those dollars. Again, they go 100% to the academic units. So if all the revenues are in the academic units, they have to have all the costs. So they use that revenue to pay for their faculty and their equipment and their travel, et cetera. But they also use it to pay for their portion of the institutional support costs, which are in 9 cost pools listed down the right. So the budget office, HR, the libraries, the president's office, the vice president for research, facilities management, all those things on the Twin Cities campus, all those pieces are in a cost pool and we charge them out to our academic units based on a series of formulas. This is just one piece of the process though. And this kind of ties it all together in terms of how we make our decisions. At the bottom is that central decision-making process where the president decides what we want to do with compensation and tuition, et cetera. That gets turned into what we call the budget framework, which is a plan for how we're going to balance next year's budget. We're going to have these cost increases and we're going to pay for them with these increased revenues or internal reallocation. That then goes over to the unit level analysis, which is driven by that budget model I just described. That helps us translate those high level decisions down to the unit. So let me give you an example. If the president decides that we want to raise tuition 2%, we want more investment in libraries, and we want a compensation increase of 2%, tuition and comp 2, et cetera. What the budget model does is help us figure out what that means for each academic unit. Do they have enough increased resource to pay for those increased costs plus invest in them, or do they not? Does it mean we have to cut them deeper? Does it mean we have to move our state money around in order to make them successful? That circles back to those decisions that come out of the process at the end. So we go through this cycle and make the decisions necessary to make each unit as successful as we possibly can, which will not be to everyone's liking. I always tell people a good budget is one in which everyone is equally unhappy. So just know that no one's ever happy. And these are just some final things to talk about the budget process and our goals of the process, which is consistency and success and financial stability. So I'm going to stop there, and I know I think I've used up all my time, and I've used up some at the beginning, so I apologize, but I'm happy to stay and take questions if there are any, and I'm always happy to respond to questions afterwards as well.
Thanks so much, Julie. That was really informative. I think we do have space for a couple of questions. I am gonna, Deirdre, I see your hands raised and you're gonna go. But Alex Batch has actually asked a question in chat, Julie. He said, I'm stunned that repairs and maintenance is only 3% if that's where building maintenance would fall. Is that because a lot of that ends up being sponsored?
No, it's not because a lot of it is sponsored. And you have to think about what I was showing you was the operating budget, not the capital budget. And so the capital budget is when we spend, $30 million to renovate a building. That is not in what I was just showing you. That is a separate budget. So keep that in mind. But we do have annual spending on, fixing this leak and fixing this elevator, et cetera. That's within that 3%. And that is woefully underinvested. And we can have a whole session about that.
Thank you, Julie. Deirdre, go ahead.
Thank you so much. This was very, very helpful. I really appreciate your time.
Sure.
Can you talk more about what is indirect cost recovery?
Yes.
What is that?
Yes, certainly. Indirect cost recovery is what we get reimbursed from our sponsors for the support or overhead costs related to research. And so if they get an NIH grant for $5 million, we get an additional roughly $2.5 million to reimburse us for the costs of the accounting and the facilities and the library, et cetera. That's what that is. And it isn't a flat percent for every grant, and they don't all pay it. But when we get it, it's great.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Sure. You want to lead this, kid, or you want me to, Shireen?
Sorry. I thought my mic was, I was muted. Shireen, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Julie. That was very informative. I work at a center here at the U of M, which is positioned or housed under CLA. So I'm wondering if there's room for negotiations in budget cuts and things of that sort at the unit or academic level. And if so, what does that process look like and how does that play out? Thank you.
So that's a perfect example of where our distributed budget management model kind of hits, because we give the instruction, in your case, to the dean. And so when we give a reallocation target from your example to the dean, it is up to them how they respond to that. So they could do something across the board. They could give out targets to all of their departments and centers and then decide differentially how to implement that. Or they could not even give out targets and just decide as at a college level, we're going to cut X, Y, and Z. It's totally up to them. And that means that every college looks different in how that process plays out and and the results in the end. But we hold the deans accountable for the financial stability of their unit. So we rely on them to make their best decisions about how to proceed, whether it's positive or negative on the budget side. So I hope that's helpful, but there is no standard or single way that it's handled.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brian, last question.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. This was, are you able to hear me, by the way?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that was awesome. And there's a lot of information that I was super curious about. I think the request for some of this kind of can go back to a question that keeps coming up as far as how this all fits into the workforce reinvestment resolution and the market refinement and compa ratios and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So in the budgeting committee, what's sort of like the general feeling or kind of conversation about where all this money is going to come from if we were to actually correct salaries university-wide for all these people with very, very low compa ratios?
Yeah.
Units oftentimes have fixed budgets, so their hands are tied, right? So
Yeah.
how are you guys talking about this?
Well, first of all, as we go forward, I think you will see, as I mentioned, the president decides what kinds of things she wants to invest in. I think you will see by virtue of what we built into our state request for the next biennium and what I think will happen in terms of even if we don't get state money, I think that she's going to prioritize a new investment beyond the pool, the general merit pool increase. I think there will be a separate pool, if you will, to address workforce reinvestment issues. That could be market, whatever the committees decide are the highest priority workforce investment things we need to do beyond the regular pool increase. So part of it starts at that decision to actually create an expense, if you will, a new expense that we're going to address this through an investment pool. So once you do that, where the money's going to come from, it's not rocket science. I mean, we don't have that many places, right? We have to grow the revenue we get. So we are asking for money from the state of Minnesota to help us with this. But we also have tuition increase plans that will vary depending on how much we get from the state of Minnesota. And all of those other revenue sources that I mentioned, that's part of what they will have to fund as well with the increases that they are trying to generate. But that also means, as I tried to make clear, we never have enough resources to cover everything, which means we have to cut internally. There will be cuts in next year's budget. They will not be across the board. They will be differential, but that's where some of that resource will come from as well. So it's planned revenue growth with some plan A's and plan B's on how those work, some internal budget cuts, and maybe less investment than we otherwise would do, for example, if we don't get the money from the state of Minnesota. So those are the pieces. That's what we have to work with.
So you guys are talking about this then, and there is kind of a plan on where to increase allocation and get investment money and things, and you're not leaving it up to the units necessarily then, because that would
Correct.
trickle
Correct.
in their possible allocation.
Correct.
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
but that is a very good point. Sometimes the units find it to be a really high priority, and they, outside of what the university does, make budget plans to address certain pain points. So that happens as well. But at a university level, it is absolutely part of our planning. In fact, there's a whole committee, an ongoing committee that's been created to help do compensation planning going forward.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Julie, thank you so much for being here with us today. I put your email in chat and encouraged folks to reach out to you if they had other questions. And I know personally you're very responsive to good questions. So thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate your time.
You're very welcome. Hope it was helpful. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. Up next, we have Kristen and Ryan, who are going to talk a little bit about the well-being program. And, because of tech issues and Julie having a little bit of a late start, I did let her go just a little bit longer than the agenda suggests. And Ryan and Kristen will be able to go just a little bit longer too. So don't worry, things won't be rushed. We'll just be a couple minutes behind. Ryan and Kristen, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good. I'm going to go ahead and share some slides. Again, hopefully, is everyone viewing the well-being program?
Yep, that looks great, Kristen.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, I can introduce myself first. I'm Kristen Larson. I am actually new to the university. I'm a well-being benefits consultant. So I've been here for 2 months, so I'm very thrilled to join the university. I bring 15 years of experience in well-being strategy and programming, and I just am very thankful for you guys letting me attend your team meeting today. And Ryan, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Reisdorfer. I am the manager of health programs for the university. So Kristen is part of my team. I lead a group of people that manage the programs and the vendor management for all of our employee benefits except for retirement related benefits. So good to be with you today.
Sounds good. Well, this morning we are going to review the wellbeing program changes. We're going to offer an overview of eligibility, incentive, and point goal changes, and then how to get started. And then we'll finish up with a portal overview. And then we will leave time for some questions if there are some questions, or you can reach out to us directly as well. So let's start with the wellbeing program change, and the biggest change is the vendor name change. So the university employees and spouses who do participate in the university wellbeing program, you should have maybe started seeing some different name changes as of September 1st, but the official effective switch date is January 1st, 2025. And with that, the only change that you're really going to need to make is sometime in mid-December, we're going to have an updated link for you to bookmark, for you to be able to go directly to the portal. But at this time, there's no need to make any changes. The app icon will stay the same as well, and there's nothing that you have to do with your username or password. With that, the wellbeing program is created around the 6 dimensions of wellbeing in our offering. So whatever your needs may be, we are here to support and guide you on your wellbeing journey. So we'll talk about eligibility. So all full and part-time employees are eligible to register and access the wellbeing portal and resources. So if you are enrolled in the university's medical plan, you will be able to earn the points for your medical rate reduction in 2026. And spouses on the medical plan are also eligible to participate and earn points towards the incentive. So on this slide, you'll be able to see the wellbeing program is available to all employees. And with that, on that left side, you'll see what is included for all eligible employees. So you will get the portal program access along with the 3 vendor partners, Wellbeats, Kaya, and Rethink Care. And I'll go through that in a little bit. And then on that right side, for anyone that is medically enrolled, for the employee and the spouse, there are some additional programming available, but the programs will only show up in your portal if you are eligible to use them. So there is no confusion there. So as you may notice, there is a point increase for this year. So starting as of September 1st through August 31st of 2025, the increase really came in the number of points employees need to earn to achieve the wellbeing incentive premium discount rate. We have adjusted the point system to reward employees and spouses with more points for completing specific well-being habits. So by increasing the point threshold to the 8,000 points for employee only, employee and children, and then employee and spouse have increased to 10,500 points for this year. The organization seeks to encourage employees to engage more consistently in healthy behaviors and lifestyle choices, ultimately enhancing the overall well-being. So the incentive is still the same, the $500 and the $750 for the employee and spouse. For spouses as well, you can earn, and the spouse participation is optional, but the spouse, if you do decide to participate, you can earn at least 2,500 points to go towards your employees to overall 10,500 point goal. So how to register? So if you have previously participated in the wellbeing program in a prior year, you will not have to re-register in the wellbeing program. If you're new to the wellbeing program, you can register at using the information on the screen provided. So really you need to make sure you have your legal last name, your preferred first name, and your 7-digit employee ID number. If you are a spouse that's looking to join, you use the employee's ID and then you add the S at the end of it, and you'll be able to register that way. So ideas to get started and just how do you get to that point goal of 8,000 or 10,500 is we did increase some of the tracking of your daily activities that you can complete. So if you tracked up to 14,000 steps or doing activities in that, whether it's swimming, maybe you like to play pickleball, different fun activities, you can all have that tracked towards your daily step count. So you can earn a maximum of 140 points per day for activity. If you're someone that likes to wear a fitness watch, you can actually sync your watch and it will complete your steps for your daily. So you're earning points just by having your watch on and doing different exercise. If you do not have a fitness watch, you can actually manually track this within the app daily, or you can actually go on the desktop as well. Some other easy ways to earn some points are completing 2 well-being cards on all different dimensions of well-being, different fun, successful tips. And those you can earn 30 points per day. If you attend any health coaching or benefit vendor, those are 200 points per webinar. If you do engage in any health coaching through the platform, that will be 250 points per session. And then we do have the well-being pledges. So let's say you do a volunteer event and you want to earn a pledge, you can earn 6 pledges for the annual year for 200 points per pledge. Then this is an example on the screen. If you were to complete all these activities, that you would be very close to the 10,000 points. So it just shows there are many ways to earn points within the platform. And we'll go through that in the reward section as well. So within your platform, if you do have your portal account pulled up on your home screen, you can actually click on the reward section under the home, and you can browse the different ways that you can earn. You'll notice on that left side column that you'll see the daily, weekly on how you can earn those points. Some of them are one and done. So if you complete a certain assessment, you'll earn those points. But if you were to complete the assessment again, you wouldn't be awarded points again for that. So a lot of different ways if you scroll on that page on how you can complete. And really, being able to earn these points, we really took a look at all the dimensions of well-being and really considered just offering different ways to be able to earn points throughout. The home page, so whether you're on your app or you're on the desktop, the home page takes you to all your actions and your daily cards. Across the top, you will see your rewards progress bar. So it will tell you how many points you need to earn, or if you have employee or employee plus spouse. And if you scroll down further on the page, you're going to see your stats and healthy habits that you're working on. Under the Home tab, you'll have the stats, and this really just allows a quick snapshot of your daily habits. And if you do have one completed, I believe it turns green as well. So you'll see a lot of green on there if you're tracking your daily habits as well. And this is where you're able to customize. So through this on the home drop down, you can click healthy habits, and you can actually customize which ones you want to track. And these ones, again, you can track daily to earn those 30 points per day. The next piece under that home one is your rewards. So again, the rewards section will showcase different depending on if you are medically enrolled employee only with spouse or non-medical. So it will actually just have a little description on the left side of the screen that will tell you how many points you need to earn. And then you also are able to view your points from previous years as well. I know it might not display on this screenshot, but you are able to go back in previous years to look at how many points you were awarded. Next is, again, this is going through that with the example of being able to earn those points and the rewards. And then this also helps where you check to see your incentive. So we did have a screenshot on that one. And then the health as well. So there's a lot of drop downs within the health. So you can explore your journeys. So, really customize it to your own habits and goals. If you do have the access to the health coaching, if you're medically enrolled, you can click on that and schedule your session. So if you're wanting to start health coaching, you could schedule a session even today. My Care checklist. We have the health assessment questionnaire that is optional within there, nutrition guide, and then a sleep guide as well. If you click over the program tab, this is where you're really going to find all the customized university benefits and the different programs that are offered. So when you click that, you're able to really, explore the different offerings within the university, whether it is, you're looking to do a biometric screening, you find the biometric screening tab and you can actually register for which campus you're at. You can create your own pledge, or you could register for one of the Personify Plus vendors. So let's say you want to do a Wellbeats class, you'll find all that under there. And then this is where also we have all of our vendor webinars and health coaching webinars as well. So there's a lot to explore under that programs tab. Let's see. I'm just going to click them all so they all come up. Okay, so from left to right, the career, emotional, financial, physical, social, and community. So we have all different dimensions of well-being under those program tabs. So you may be familiar with Sky Happiness retreats or different things that they offer. We do have the Masonic Cancer Center, so a lot of different webinars that they provide. We do have the career one as well with some of their professional development webinars. And then we also do have the bike program. So just some of the ones that are highlighted within that section. For biometric screenings, so if you are eligible, medically enrolled, you are available for medically enrolled test kits, physician forms, or on-site screenings. And you will find more information on how to register these within that programs tab. So I had mentioned before that we did have some vendor, again, for all employees. So this is medical enrolled and non-medical enrolled. So we have 3 different vendors that are partnered through the Personify Health platform. So we have Kaya, which you can complete a class to help with any pain management by completing videos daily for 100 points per day. And it's typically a 6-week time frame. This will get adjusted after the first of the year to be able to offer it throughout the whole year. Wellbeats, you can explore fitness, nutrition, mindfulness classes. If you complete 20 minutes of classes or more per day, you can earn 70 points per day on that. And Rethink Care, you can learn skills to manage common stressors by completing different videos, and you can also earn 50 points per day. So really all of these 3 vendor partnerships, it's easy to access their platforms. You can bookmark them and then earn those points daily. The next tab across the top is that social tab. So this is where you're going to find and where you can complete challenges with your coworkers. You can add friends to help with accountability or add your spouse. You can create a group with similar interests or join a group that's already out there. You can give a shout out to a coworker. And lastly, the events calendar to keep you updated with upcoming events. If you use the portal or app event calendar to find well-being points and eligible events, please note that the Personify Health calendar will be sunsetting on January 1st of 2025. You can find well-being points eligible events at the Office of Human Resources OHR calendar, which we will have a scrolling card that will always be showing where to be able to find those events. And then we will have it under the programs tab as well. So you'll have 2 ways to be able to continuously find those well-being events. The next tab across the top is the media. So here you're able to view a quick video of all different dimensions of well-being. You can even take an exercise class right through the media platform, and you can earn 25 points for completing a video. So again, that sums up the portal display and demo that we have for you, but we do want to open it up to any questions that you have at this point with the well-being program.
Thank you so much, Kristen and Ryan. We really appreciate you being here. And I do think we're going to have some questions. Folks, just raise your hand and I'll call on you in order. I think Brian Olmsted was first.
Thanks. This is really cool to see, like, just make sure that, I mean, I think I understood all the different parts of the program, but it was nice to see it all laid out. So I know I'm not missing anything. I also know this is not your program necessarily. This is, you know, like a package, I believe, that's kind of is contracted with, right? Is that correct?
Well, it's a combination. We do the programming.
Okay.
And so we do a combination of some things from Personify, formerly known as Virgin Pulse.
Yeah.
And then we also have university partners that are rolled into the programming too. So it's a combo, but we do kind of guide the overall programming.
Oh,
Meaning,
okay,
you
that's
know,
awesome.
there are some things that are standard, like it just comes with their platform. But for the most part, we try to build the programming around the 6 pillars, as I call them, of the well-being program, so that there's choice in all those areas.
That's okay. That's great. Like, so, the question I have then is, do you guys ever have like, like an internal review cycle or something? I mean, I know the whole program is designed to be helpful, but do you ever have like a review on parts that actually might be very unhelpful for some people? I know there are cases that would run brought to us where it's like, I have an eating disorder, and it is really unhelpful to have this thing pop up and say like, hey, how do you feel about tracking your weight? Like, or, other things like that, or people who have suffered from depression and are getting, stuff in here that's sort of like, hey, are you having a tough time? Just change your outlook, because it's like kind of invalidating and sort of minimizing. Do you guys get any feedback for this, or for like tailoring the program, for like maybe adding layers, or having an individual participant being able to like click a filter and like it's not going to bug me about things that may be triggering for people with eating disorders and stuff? I'm just trying to think of like, I know it's supposed to be helpful, but in some ways there's feedback we're getting where it's actually very unhelpful and triggering.
Yeah. So we're always open for feedback through the um, OHR email address. I think it's ohr@umn.edu. So people can always send their feedback in that way, and it would be helpful if they could mention things specifically. I do, and because it'd be interesting to know, because sometimes it's helpful to work with people, because there are some things like when you set up your preferences, you'll start getting messages because that's what you prefer. So someone could accidentally have something checked, and you get messages that aren't helpful. Um, and we can help people shut those things off or get things that might be more helpful. Sometimes it's hard to, we have almost 19,000 employees that are medical plan participants, plus another 4 or 5,000 that are non-medical participating. So it can be difficult to, like tailor everything that comes through because of the cards you might get. That could be those triggering points you mentioned, Brian. And then the more formal process is every year through the benefit advisory committee, they do a survey and we ask for feedback on the well-being program. And so that's the most formal feedback mechanism. We usually ask people to rate their experience in all of our benefit programs that are in the survey on a scale of 1 to 5, and then give us comments. And we also ask people if they'd like us to reach out to them to give us their contact information, and we will reach out to them. So either we will, or we'll have a vendor, depending on the type of issue it is. Programming things, like you mentioned, those would be best to, end up going through the OHR email so they get to Kristen, and then Kristen can work with Personify to see what we can do to make it less healthy for individuals. But like I said, we are trying to tailor to over 20,000 people. So it is hard to single out certain things because it is sometimes part of a package. But we can help people. Hopefully we can help people to maybe shut some messaging off so they don't get those kinds of things that would be triggering for them.
Yeah, the fact that that is an available option is really helpful to know about, because when people come to like, benefits and compensation committee with specific comments, we know that there's a mechanism and a set of resources maybe we can direct them to. And yeah, it's understandable. 20,000 people, there's no way you're going to preemptively be able to predict all of it. So it requires like an input and feedback loop. And then that answers my question. I'm just curious, like, what is the mechanism for collecting input or receiving?
Yeah. So that's always been available. I've always kept a feedback in my, for example, for well-being, I have actually a full subfolder that says, feedback. And so when we go through programming, so once a year we go through and just look at the programming for the next year and make decisions about how that will all work. So I pull out my feedback folder and look at anything in particular that comes in that way. And like I said, the BAC survey is something we pull out and revisit, and we do try to resolve the issues that people bring to our attention through that survey. I would, and I think, Brian, you're part of the P&A Comp and Benefits Subcommittee meeting, if I recall correctly. I would encourage you guys to try and stay out of details with people as much as possible, because we start dealing with protected health information. And so I think it's always safer for the university if you just direct people directly to the OHR email address. So then what happens with that, just so you know, they get processed, a ticket goes to the right person on my team, or if it's an administrative thing, it might go to the Ben admin team, but we all end up and getting tickets. The other nice thing about that is they track kind of on a topic basis. So if we get everyone going through the feedback loop that way, we can better start tracking like group issues too, like
Okay.
that kind of thing. So, but I just want to throw it out. I know you guys are trying to help your constituents, and I really appreciate it. And I don't think I've ever said no to any email you sent me directly, but I would prefer if we try to keep it more private as much as possible, because sometimes they start getting routed to multiple people, and I don't know if that's in the best interest of everyone when that starts happening.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alex, I know you have a question, and then you also had a question or a comment in chat, and I think you should share that out loud as well. But
Okay,
go ahead.
I'll start with the one that is not in chat since people probably already read it. This is feedback that's probably going to get me in trouble from some of my colleagues, but I think it's feedback you guys need to hear. I really like the well-being program, and I do not engage with it at all. I think there's some really cool resources in there, but I have a Garmin watch that I bought a while back that gives me all the points I could ever need by just having it on me. I have something like 25,000 points right now, and have never opened the platform once this year so far. I actually think that's kind of a shame. I would go to it, but I have absolutely no incentive to in my busy day. So I just felt like that was feedback that you all needed to hear, that like in a way you're actually missing a really receptive audience. I think a lot of the cards and activities and stuff in there are cool. I just can't justify going in and checking them out because I already have all the points I need. Um, and then I did mention in the chat, and I'll just highlight this, but I did not like the old name of this program at all. I found it very awkward to talk about. I found it awkward to have it bookmarked on my computer when I have to share my screen, or when like someone comes up and meets with me in my office. So I am much happier that it's going to be called Personify after this. So that's my other comment.
No, thank you for that feedback. I mean, I think to your point, it is fairly easy to get the points. And I do agree with you. I personally love the cards. I've set up my preferences to get the cards. It's one of the things I do because it takes a couple minutes every day to read the cards. Um, the only thing I wish is there was a way to save the cards that I think are really like, oh, this is super meaningful to me, and I could just save them in my own little card repository, because they're only there for the day, and once you read them, they're gone. And um, but I think there's some cool features that way. I try to encourage people to play around. Um, Alex, you're not alone in the feedback you gave me. When Laura Alfiero left the university, I filled in for her at the farmers markets, and I had a lot of people coming up to me, over the course of those farmers markets, just saying the same kind of stuff as you, as um, they appreciate the benefit of it all, and they actually have some, even in some units, some friendly competitiveness going on and being involved in it too. So I think there's some cool things that can come that way, and by encouraging more social interaction too. So, and I don't mean to be hogging all the Q&A, but as Kristen said, she's only been here 2 months, and especially from a historical perspective, I have more insight from things that have gone on in the past and how we got to where we are today. But uh, Kristen can always jump in and add anything to any of my comments that you'd like.
Ryan, I think one last question. In chat, Colin Planlap asked, does the university's contract with the program vendor place any restrictions on what the vendor can do with employee data?
Yes. And this was a big topic a number of years ago, and we went through the whole process through the benefit advisory committee, including sharing the privacy statements and everything else like that. All those things, all their privacy and all the restrictions with the data are in their policy. I think if you go out to their website, it's listed right there, and I think it might even be on our website too. I'm just not as certain about that. And then none of our vendors are by contract are allowed to share our data outside of the university. So if it could be rolled in from an aggregate level, but there will never be individual data that should ever roll out of any of our programs to go anywhere else. So that's a requirement that we have in every one of our vendor contracts. So whether it's Medica or Delta Dental, Personify, we take the privacy of our employees seriously. And I know, like I said, we actually had on the benefit advisory committee, we had a professor from the School of Law who actually helped us with Personify too on clarifying some of their privacy information. So I think we feel pretty comfortable where they're at with it all. But if people have specific questions, we're willing to address those.
Great, thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Kristen. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next speakers. I know, Kristen, you've provided an email contact to reach out directly. So, folks, if there are any questions or any further concerns, do please feel free to reach out directly to Kristen and or Ryan. I'm sure he would still be able to help for a little while here.
Yes.
So thank you again both for coming. We really appreciate your time. Great job.
Hey, Kit, just one thing, just
Yep.
so you said for a little while, just in case people haven't heard, I am retiring on February 3rd. So when he says a little while, that is the little while.
A little while.
And with some vacation time in there, I think I have less than 6 weeks left with the university. So, but I'm happy to, and the odds are if you send it to me, I'll be getting Kristen involved anyway. So, but do feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much, Ryan, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
All right. All right, folks, next up, we have another presentation. And again, the slides are linked in our agenda. We have Paula Merrill, who's the compensation director, and Melissa Haynes, who's the senior compensation consultant in total rewards in OHR. And Paula, I know you're here because we've been chatting, so go ahead and get started. The floor is yours.
Sounds great. Let me make sure I can share. Does everybody see my presentation? Market refinement, high level.
We do see it. It's in presenter view. I don't know if that matters.
Okay. Are you seeing the presenter view? You're seeing the black around it then?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, nuts. Let me try again. I get this wrong too often. Okay, let's try that. How's that?
Looks great.
So we were asked to come to talk about our market refinement project, just to kind of give the group a high level overview of what it is, what it's not, and answer any questions about it. So I have about 8 to 10 slides that will go really, really high level. I know from the names in the meeting that some of you have been through this. Some of you have been through it a long time ago. Some have gone through it recently. So, but there's also surprisingly a good number that haven't. So this is going to be, I'm trying to hit all kinds of needs. So this is going to be really high level. Let me see if I can get my screen to move. So why did we take on the market refinement is a question that a lot of people have before we start this work. And essentially what it comes down to is we have, as you know, very limited financial resources here, but we also want to recruit and retain the top talent out in the external market. And then as budgets get more and more crunched, we have more and more workforce challenges to address, to look at, to try to find creative solutions to. We think this project, which is going to give us more clear classification titles as well as up-to-date market, will help us accomplish that goal of using our resources in the way that makes the most sense. This is again, very elementary. This is our standard job family framework. This is the overall structure independent of families. So the picture on the right, you'll see there's down at a level 1, moving up to a level 10. And that's just a generic number for me to be able to refer to it. The entry level group of here is the professional 1 or supervisor 1. You move up, there's a professional individual contributor type title at each level, as well as a supervisory title, all the way through level 7. Level 8 is only present in the education family, but it does exist in the structure. And then at the 9th and 10th level, those are just management level type jobs, and those are our director 1 and our director 2. As you move up the structure, the jobs grow in independence and decision-making, complexity of the work, and the problem solving that's needed in the daily job. The scope of the work grows, and then not surprisingly, the education and experience requirements also go up as you move up that structure. What we do on our team is we classify our jobs into the family level that best matches that independence, complexity, scope, etc., found in the description that we receive of the work being done. So pre-refinement, this is just a simple example. HR was our first family done, and it's a really generic type job family. By that, I mean, there's nothing unusual. It's just very standard. So what HR, you remember this picture from the last page, HR has almost all of those levels. There is not a level 4 in the HR family. So you see this gray rectangle that says NA. It's just not there in the HR family. Strangely, not there in the external market either. But you start at the bottom. This is the general picture. And this is what all of our job families looked like prior to refinement. Let's see. First thing to tell you is the data was accurate in 2012, 2013 for all the jobs at that level, but it was not updated annually after that. What we did to the market, what we did instead was we aged it by the merit pool percentage. And from a purist who's done comp for over 20 years, that doesn't work real well because some markets move more each year and some markets move less. So just a flat, I'm going to age you by 3% and move you up doesn't necessarily keep you in line with the market. The other issue with this pre-refinement look is that number, if you look down here at like the green one, the Pro 2 level, that number, that $58,000 number is a big mishmash of jobs. It might be people working in HR in the call center or working in compensation or working in talent acquisition. And the market for all 3 types of work is very different from each other. So this is like this big generic number that doesn't serve anyone very well. It also makes it hard to figure out who's doing what. So if I were to be asked, how many people are in your comp department? It would have been hard. Well, that's not a good example because I work in the comp department. So of course I would know how many people are in my own department, but how many people are doing benefits might not know because all I had was a title to go on. And those people could be doing anything and be anywhere. So it was hard to function with this. So we came through and we built out this picture. This is the post-refinement picture of HR. You can see we kept the same general look on the far left, where you've got management titles, you've got individual contributor titles. Then there's that general number again, because there are in each family a very small number of people that don't fit smoothly into a specialty. So we maintained this option for those rare individuals. Generally speaking, it's about 3% of a family. Or less. And then we built out each different specialty. So now going forward, we know that a benefits Pro 2, for example, might be paid in the market $59,000, whereas a training person, chose the wrong one. A talent acquisition person makes $71,000, or a call center person makes $46,000. So you've got much more of a pulse on what the market's doing. You may be wondering where that data comes from. We maintain a salary survey library. These are surveys that are published by large third-party vendors like Mercer, Willis Towers Watson, Culpeper. Then there's some smaller vendors that have niches, but we gather over 30 of these publications each year, and we maintain a library of those. And we use those to match our jobs to those benchmark jobs in the market. Let's see, is there anything I've missed here that I don't want to forget? Let me go to the next page. So this is going to tell you how, generally speaking, how we get from that first picture to that second picture. Typically, this is up to an 8-month project, depending on the size of the group and any difficulties we encounter. The first 2 months, our team is quietly working behind the scenes, building out foundational data. We also hold meetings with our senior leaders during that time to gather their support. And we also work on drafting specialty descriptions. Emphasis on the word draft, because the second grouping, that months 3 and 4, that's when we pull together our advisory team. Typically, those advisory teams are made up of individuals from across the university who've been identified as being experts that we can count on to help us make decisions about that particular family. We know compensation on my team, but we don't know the details of, like, I'm going to pick on grants and contracts. We don't know the details of grants and contracts work. So that's where those advisory team members come in. They're a really, really critical part of this work. We also provide an introductory presentation, training, whatever you want to call it, session with the managers of employees in those groups so that they know what we're doing. They understand why we're doing it. It's got something in common with what I'm sharing with you today. We talked through how we developed those specialties. And one thing I forgot to mention is that advisory team also weighs in on our drafts of our specialty descriptions. And we really had a lot of back and forth during this phase to get those descriptions to appropriately describe the work done here at the university. We then, at the end of that phase, we ask managers to assign employees to one of the specialties. There's no change to employee levels. It's just, you're an HR person. So are you in comp? Are you in benefits? Are you in talent acquisition? What type of work is it that you're doing? And we really encourage managers, if they want to involve their employees in those discussions. Then we come to months 5 and 6 of the project. Once we get all of those assignments back, then there's a little bit of scurrying on our end to analyze where people are, to set up job codes, to get the systems ready, to get everybody moved to those new job codes. And then finally, at the end of that phase and the beginning of the final phase, there's a big communications effort. We provide training to managers. It's kind of a basically, now what? What do we do with this information now that this project is over? And then we also distribute memos to each employee about what their new title is. So it can be up to an 8-month time. Now, with the research family, we did hit a snag. It actually took 2 years. So it was a little bit different, but in general, when these run smoothly, we also, like this year, we completed libraries, and we completed a small section of the, advancement family for our major gift officers. And those fit this timeline just fine. So we've been through this project now quite a few places. These are our 20 job families, and the maroon families are where we're done. I cannot tell you how fun this is to share that we've only got 2 left. I remember when this had one maroon square and everything else was gold. So it's taking a while to get it done, but I believe strongly in taking that time and having employees have as much input, not employees, managers, units, all across the university having input into this, because we don't want to put something in place that doesn't work for the university. So we've taken our time to listen, go back, adjust, go back, and then roll out a final answer. That's what happened with research. So we're making serious progress. So then the question that came to us prior to this is, what is this project actually? And so this was our effort to give it to you in 4 quick bullets. Essentially, what this project is it's a refinement of providing market data for employees in the civil service and P&A job codes that are in our standard job family structure. That's that thing I showed you way back at the beginning. It's a foundational step that provides specialties or breaks employees out into disciplines that more accurately reflect the work the employee is doing. So after this, I can easily pull a report and say, hey, here's our people in benefits. Here's our people in comp. Here's our people providing training. it's really handy because we get asked a lot of questions on our team. And so it's very helpful to be able to answer, say, Board of Regents questions with that information. Before we had to say, I don't know, it's not visible to me. One thing I forgot to mention in that first bullet, labor represented employees are not part of this project. Neither are those with salary floors. Another question was, is it connected to PEAK? It's really not. PEAK is a project that's handled completely separately. So this is not for PEAK. This started before PEAK was a thing, and it'll probably continue along, like working side by side, but not really intersecting. This allows us as a university to establish salary ranges with midpoints that reflect the market and give managers real-time information for what the specialties, for what the pay is for each specialty and each level in that family. One thing to know, though, that is that this project does not result in immediate changes to levels within a specialty that would require the standard reclass process. It also, though, we were very, that's what I'm looking for, sensitive to the challenges that employees went through with the original job family study. So one of our big goals for this was to minimize disruption for the employee. So there's no changes to civil service or P&A status, no changes to V-class status. If somebody had V-class before, they have it still. Any other reason they might be in a no new entry, we did not touch that. We maintained whatever system was in place for people before. When they get done, they have those same I don't know what you want to call it, situations about their employment. This isn't intended to result in immediate pay changes, but what it does do is it gives us information to make pay decisions. And so while there's a feeling of employees are expecting big pay raises, what's actually being done here is a step three places before that. Because if you don't know how much to change pay, you'll never be able to do it. So we're trying to get the foundation built so that we can eventually look at where do we spend our money. And then it's equipping the university again with data to manage salaries over time. With that, I will stop sharing and open it up to questions. Oops, where's my... One last thing, if I haven't already sent it, there are resources listed at the back that are available for you. You can follow those links. Sorry, now I'm ready to open it up to questions.
Paula, thank you so much. That was so informative. Just a quick question for you. Would it be possible for you to send this version of the deck?
Yep.
Yep, great. If you can send it my way, then I'll make sure that everyone here gets a copy of it. Thank you. Folks, any questions from the floor for Paula? Deirdre.
Hi, Paula. Thank you so much. I'm in a group that has already gone through this, and I've heard a variety of versions of it, and I still find this information really useful. So I appreciate the work you're doing. My question came from my unit is a unit that's switching to PAT for performance appraisal. And as we were kind of learning more about that, we saw some information on the Human Resources website, sort of sharing different ways units could break down how they deliver merit. And in one of those, there was one of the options that we're giving to units was basically a way to provide merit, but in a way that appeared to also be looking to address compa ratio issues, so that individuals who were basically at the median for basically at a 1 for their compa ratio were eligible for a lower merit increase than someone who was below. And that felt somewhat antithetical to the idea of merit. And I'm just kind of looking to understand from your perspective where you see the responsibility for market refinement salary adjustments to come from, and in a way that I believe needs to be separate from merit if the university is, still so strongly going to state that merit is how we do raises.
It's interesting you bring this up because this is a discussion right now at one of the, well, yet still being formed workforce reinvestment resolution groups. We're talking right now about how we manage this going forward. So there will be more information as, you know, as the year unfolds and as merit gets closer, but for now, this is up for discussion. And hopefully it will get a little bit more clarity because I understand where you're coming from. And I'm hoping we can fix some of the misunderstandings that are maybe out there.
Thanks, Paula. Laurel Nightingale, you're up next.
Hi, Paula. Thanks for
Hey.
being here. I actually had just like one question. I saw the other slide deck, and the one thing that was mentioned on there that I wanted to follow up with you on was a point that said, going forward, the OHR compensation will determine the appropriate level within the family,
Sure.
as well as the appropriate specialty for new positions and reclass requests. Is that your team? Like, is that central HR?
Yes.
So yeah, say more about that, please.
So our team, the classification side of our team receives position management records anytime there's a change in PeopleSoft to a job description. They review those today when if it's a new job or change, they're reviewing those and deciding what level the job is. But going forward, in addition to level, they're also going to be reading and determining whether the lane is appropriate or the specialty is appropriate.
Okay.
Generally speaking, we've been doing this since 2018. I don't think we have a lot of controversy here.
Mhm.
But it's just a reminder that our team is going to be double checking for that.
Okay.
So that if something really strange comes forward, we would catch it. Same thing happens with reclasses. They're also reading job descriptions then. Those are usually all about level, but in addition, they're also looking at, like, if they see something really unusual or that seems off, they're going to ask questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Alex.
Hi, Paula. I have two questions that I'm going to pass along on behalf of constituents because they have raised them with me and I don't always know what to tell them. The first is, is it within the intent of the system for someone to say, you know what? I think my responsibilities are actually more befitting of a higher level in my job classification, or I believe I would be able to do that kind of work. Am I allowed essentially to use this structure as a means for advancement? Can I say I'm really a 6 and not a 5? And if so, how does that work? And secondly, if someone is considering a position at the U, doesn't currently have one, and they believe that the position that they're being offered is at a lower level than they feel like they would want or could do, and they want to make that a part of the negotiation process, is that also possible? Or what would you say to somebody who is in that position where they're like, you know, the offer is a 3 and I think I could be a 4 in this exact same job, family, or class? Is that within scope of this system? And if so, what would you recommend that person do in that position?
The first one's easier to answer than the second one because they're already an employee. When that's the case, we have a reclass process. It's on the OHR website that employees can access when they think. So if I'm an employee and I think, you know, I'm doing way more than what my job level implies I'm doing, they can then go out and request a reclassification. Employees have that right. Looks like Melissa pasted the link in the chat, and follow the steps for the groups here. They would follow the P&A, civil service and P&A steps. If you have a labor representative, well, you wouldn't have a labor represented constituents. So no, never mind. But if you have an employee around you, they would follow the labor represented version. And then our team, part of that reclass request is what's the word I'm struggling with my words today, is writing down the duties of what they're doing and telling us what's changed in their work and demonstrating how that work is really at the next level up. Then there's an internal process that's somewhat unique to each college, so it's hard for me to comment centrally on what that is. But each college has a process that is followed before a reclass comes to our team. And then once it comes to our team, we review it, and within a 3-week period, we turn around a yes or a no. Sometimes we also will turn around if somebody is requesting, like, say, a 2-level jump, we might only approve a 1-level jump. That can happen as well, but our team does review and respond. For the employee, the thing though that in all of these is the work itself has to be the driver. Is the work itself at the new level? Not am I the employee capable of doing more, but am I doing more? So that's where that second one gets a little trickier, where the person isn't actually an employee yet. So it's hard to know what they're going to be doing. But we've had discussions about this topic, especially within the research family, where we heard that we can give people who have more skills more to do. And that's hard. And so, because then they end up needing a reclass right away. So with that, if that becomes the case, we would want to talk to your unit HR people about our options. But without them being here and doing the work, it's hard to say you want to negotiate a level before you're even here. You certainly can give it a shot, but it's not going to go as smoothly as once you're already showing and doing and the work is needed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Paula, thank you. We have time for one last question, about 1 minute left, so I'm going to call on Nick. Natalie, I'm sorry, if you have a question though, please do email Paula directly.
Hi, Paula, thank you. Nick Skulon from the Morris campus. This is, I guess, somewhat tangentially related, but did the refinement process consider number of supervisees for some of like the management level, upper echelons of the positions? Because being from a small unit, and this is my understanding, so correct me if I'm wrong, please, but like you get to a certain point and you cannot progress any further. You hit a glass ceiling because there are not more people that you're supervising, which seems odd to me because a director at a smaller unit doesn't necessarily have less complexity to their job just because they have fewer people to supervise. Like there's more in the job to me, and from what I see as, I guess, a supervisee than just the number of people that person is supervising.
So a couple of things. One of the pieces of this that I love, and this is one of the reasons I actually came to the university 8 years ago, is that we keep a consistency across our levels. So if we do, but let me back up. We do have the requirement that in order to be a manager title, you need 3 non-student reports, either direct or indirect. Meaning if you have somebody that reports to you that has 2 people reporting to them, you hit that 3. But so that is a requirement that we have. But that being said, you can be at the same level up to a manager 3 or an individual contributor level 7. I don't know what you want to, every family calls it something different. In HR, we might call it a consultant 3. In finance, it would be a finance analyst 3. Those are equal levels. So even if I only have 2 direct reports, I'm still at this, and maybe my official PeopleSoft title is individual contributor level 7, but I'm at the exact same level in terms of the structure as if I was a manager 3 and had all 3 direct reports. And I love that because that allows us to manage a little bit of this situation that you're describing. The salary ranges are the same. It's just the PeopleSoft title. You can still call yourself from a working title perspective, manager or director. That part's all fine. Because we're trying to find a way to meet everybody's needs. And you're describing a situation that we know is tricky, especially for smaller units. So that's the mechanism we have to try to make that manageable for our smaller areas. Does that make sense?
Paula, thank you so much for being here. I'm so sorry to cut you off. We've got a limited amount of time and we've got to do the rest of the meeting. Folks, again, Paula put her email address into the chat. So please do feel free to reach out to her if you have any questions. I've corresponded with Paula, and she's really quick at responding, especially to questions with nuance. So Paula, thank you so much for being here
Thanks.
today. We're really grateful for everything that you've shared.
Thanks.
All right, folks, we're gonna move quickly into Senate and subcommittee reports, and I'm gonna go first. Sorry, not sorry. I'm the chair. I get to make that decision sometimes. Um, I have just a very quick few updates. So a week from today, I'm going to be presenting to the Board of Regents, the chair of all governing bodies. So me, CSCC, the FCC, and the student governance members will be presenting in December and then also in the summer to the Board of Regents. We essentially are doing, just a mid-year update. I've been getting a lot of feedback from folks about things to share, and I really appreciate all the feedback that I'm getting so far. One of the things that I am going to emphasize requires just a tiny bit of explanation, so just bear with me here. Um, so yesterday in the University Senate, the president shared that this spring, two of the University Senate, and again, not P&A Senate, the president shared that two of our University Senate meetings will be required to be in person. And then next year, all University Senate meetings will be required to be in person. This, it came as a bit of a surprise to several of the governance leaders. We hadn't heard about it with much notice at all. Um, First up, I want to just reiterate that with P&A Senate, it is at the discretion of the chair, and at the discretion of PAC what our meeting modality looks like. Now, just because I'm raising this that happened in the University Senate, please don't panic or worry that P&A Senate is going to be required to meet in person this spring or next year. That's not happening. I can confirm that. However, as I go into this Board of Regents presentation, I really want some numbers, and I want to get some feedback. I want to be able to share, we have such great participation in the P&A Senate and as P&A members on university-wide committees, which are filled 100% right now. We these things are possible because we're able to meet via Zoom. Our meetings are equitable and people are able to ask questions. Everybody has the same level of voice because we're meeting via Zoom. This is a topic that I'm really passionate about. I did just throw a form into chat. I'll be sending that around via email, but if you could, please just take a few seconds because I'd love to take some numbers and some percentages into my Board of Regents report if possible. Cole mentioned as he was reporting out that the CSCC has been providing names for the workforce reinvestment. My gosh, the way I co-authored the darn thing, the workforce reinvestment resolution, and he mentioned that CSCC had provided all of those. We did too. We're again. I actually think that OHR reached out to me about asking for 3 extra names to fill those committees in additions to the ones that we filled because they were really happy with who we provided. So we did quickly provide 3 more names. So we're doing the same thing. We've provided everything, and I just heard from Ken Horseman earlier this week that that those committees will be kicking off starting in January. So I think we're going to get a lot of momentum in the new year. A reminder, if you have not signed up for a subcommittee, please do so. It's required as part of your service here. And if you haven't yet, just reach out directly to Jacqueline or to me and we'll steer you in the right direction. And then I'm going to jump right into our subcommittee reports. So Monica and Brian with BNC, please.
Good morning, everyone. So in BNC last month, in November, we had Ryan Riesdorfer come in and talk about our health benefits. Sorry, I'm looking at the subcommittee report of what I wrote earlier on this week. Ryan came in to talk about a general OHR update and told us that he was officially retiring on February 3rd, and Katie Kalaji has been selected to replace him. And then Ryan introduced us to Kristen Larson. We also had John Bretnell come in from OHR to talk about the university retirement plans. And that includes both the faculty retirement plans and the 2 optional retirement plans. And that was quite informative. I've attached a link to our agenda notes document, as well as that has a link to the recording. So feel free to watch that. And then lastly, Brian Olmsted, and he can speak more to this if people have any questions. We are kicking off a working group to talk about the reclassification project or reclassification process from the standpoint of before it gets to the compensation department in OHR. So what, trying to solicit feedback of what happens in individual units, just because the anecdote is that it takes forever to get a reclass to go through, even though HR's process is a 3-week span of time. So we are looking to gather information and provide feedback to OHR.
Yeah,
anything to add, Brian?
Yeah, that's kind of, it's a bit of a soft start. It's kicked off. I've got an ongoing dialogue with Paula, who has offered to kind of direct us to people who can answer questions and help towards the goal of like maybe modifying things so there's a little more transparency and a little more agency that individuals can take in the reclass process. So we just need to get some of the stakeholders who are primarily involved in some of those steps engaged on this. So that's where we are right now.
I was muted. Thank you, Brian and Monica. Next up, Angie and Deirdre from the Comm Subcommittee.
Hi, folks. I'm speaking on behalf of us today. We sent out our first newsletter the week of Thanksgiving, and we had a 63% open rate, which I am not a newsletter person, but all the comms people around me tell me that's really good. And we were able to see some really cool analytics. Thank you, Jacqueline. So appreciative. Because in some of those analytics, we were able to see that people were reviewing the entire newsletter. One of the things that had a highest click rate on the newsletter was one of our last items in the newsletter about Coursera access. And that had like 28% views or click rate. And it was nearly the bottom of the document. So that tells us people didn't just open it and dismiss it, but they actually scrolled through. So I'm just slightly giddy about that. We are meeting on Monday, and in that meeting, we will be working on our recap from this meeting. So that's one of the reasons I'm super appreciative of sharing of all of the slide decks that we got today, and hopefully the Paula's deck, because I would love to be able to share those in the meeting recap for people to learn more if they want to. So we will be working on that. We'll be talking about our next newsletter, which will be coming out in February. And I am absolutely asking you all if you would be willing to nominate people to be featured in the newsletter. We're looking to highlight 2 P&A employees, and we'd really, really like one of those employees to be someone who has a primarily instructional role. So does not have to be someone who is on P&A Senate. It can absolutely just be a colleague within your unit who is a senior lecturer who is doing really cool or interesting work, really engaged with our students, really adding a lot of value to the university. We would love to highlight one of those individuals, as well as someone who holds one of the roles that many of us in this room engage with in the administrative, staff, advising, research side of the world. So we had a link in the newsletter, and we've shared it a few other places, but reach out to myself or Angie if you need that link again, to give us recommendations either for yourself or other colleagues to feature. And then we will be working, like I said, so what did I say? We'll be working on our February newsletter, and we'll be working on our meeting recap. Any questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have outreach with Erin Fighter.
Hi, so we have been in the process of concluding our midterm elections for the open P&A Senate and alternate seats. We started with 23 vacant seats, and we've been able to immediately fill 5 of those seats from our interest form that we sent out. And we are currently holding elections to fill 4 more seats in units where we got more than one person interested, which is the College of Design, College of Education and Human Development, College of Science and Engineering. And then the College of Liberal Arts is also in the process of holding their election to fill their seats. And then we just recently had some more eligible staff express interest. So I think we'll have 2 more alternate seats that we'll be able to fill very soon. And then looking forward, we're looking into the spring elections, and we're brainstorming ideas on how to get more interest there, and also hoping to collaborate with the communications subcommittee on some outreach ideas that we have.
Thank you, Erin. I really appreciate that report. And also Chris, who had to leave just a little bit early. Next up, we have our PD&E subcommittee with Molly and Alex.
Hi, folks. I'll be doing this recap for us. So first and foremost, our first policy pop-up webinar that our committee is hosting is going to be on December 12th from 10 to 11 via Zoom. If you want to register, or if you would like to share that link with your colleagues, please do so. I just dropped it into the chat. It's going to be featuring Karen Diver, who's going to be discussing the new Indigenous research policy at the U. So a very important topic. Please share it widely. You also should have hopefully gotten an email from Jacqueline about this, I think earlier this week. So it might be in your inboxes right now. Speaking of future events, we have also laid the groundwork for hosting, co-hosting an event on retirement savings plans with the Benefits and Compensation Subcommittee. We also already have a tentative date and a speaker lined up for hosting a professional development webinar on digital accessibility and the new sort of federal guidelines coming down the pike on that topic. We also have a speaker who is interested on giving a professional development webinar on the topic of building and maintaining intergenerational work relationships. So I hope we'll be able to announce dates and times for those events coming soon. We also know that there's interest within our subcommittee to do one on the use leave and time off policies, broadly speaking, and also on striking a good work-life balance. And I think we're just still trying to finalize who the speakers would be for such an event. So I think that means we have 1 event planned officially already and 5 more in the works. So that means probably by May, we will have ran 6 events. So you'll probably be hearing more from us in the coming months about when those will be. And if anyone would like to help us with them, let me know. Co-leading one of these events makes all the difference. It helps move things forward quicker.
Alex, there was a question in chat. Oh, never mind. Molly just answered it. If they would be recorded and shared with P&A, and Molly answered and said that they are recorded if the presenters agree.
Yes, I think Molly could correct me if I'm wrong since she's hovering. I think it does take some time for those recordings to get online, because I think we are under some level of obligation to make sure that they have an effective audio transcript, and that can take some time to put together. So bear with us. It may be a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's usually a couple of weeks to get the transcript done, but also to get the recording then uploaded to our YouTube channel and all those things. So once we get all that done, it's actually added to the P&A Senate website to, like, you can see even last year's recordings and everything. So that does take a little time.
Yeah. I should also say too that if you register for the event, as soon as that recording is done, usually Molly or I or one of the co-organizers of the event just gets the registration list off of Zoom and emails the link to everybody who's registered. So if you know you can't attend, but you know you want the recording as soon as it's available and you don't want to have to remember to go find it a couple of weeks later, register anyway, and then you will pretty much automatically get that recording link when it's ready.
Great. Thank you both. Folks, that concludes our subcommittee reports. Cole gave his in the beginning, and I don't see Ethan here in the room. We don't have any old business. Is there any new business? Going once, twice. Deirdre.
We had an item that was submitted to the request for P&A Senate to discuss. That was, remember we talked about that at the last PAC meeting?
Yes. We did, and given that we're over, we should probably move to discuss that at our next meeting. We'll move that, Deirdre, to old business, or we can make it an agenda item. Either way will work. Folks, with that, we will now adjourn, and thank you so much, and have a nice break if you're able to take one coming up soon. Thank you all.
Thank you.